cycle comes back to where it started. And Spangler says this is what lies in store for us in the future. There will be a centralization of power as society becomes so decentralized and so chaotic. Everyone will get sick of the violence, sick of the chaos, that they will eventually reach a point where they'll be glad to turn it over to an autocracy. They'll be glad to turn it over to the Caesars, which is what the Romans, they were so tired of the chaos, so they welcomed this new centralization in the power of one man. And not only that, but now you can begin projecting your divinity images onto them. And the emperors began to become divinized as the centuries went by, and they became these divinities. So now you have a new seat for that projection of the self as well. So Spangler says we're in the process right now of moving toward this centralization of power. The second Caesarism will come to the West as it came to the Romans, and it's an inevitability. So
interestingly, there's an astrological parallel between the first century, like I can't remember the dates offhand, but around 300 or 400 AD, there's that stellium that they have that's similar to the stellium we're having next year. And then
what is the stellium?
The stellium that next May 2nd and 3rd is going to be a gathering of all of the visible planets in Taurus.
Right, that's right.
And I was reading this somewhere, I saw it somewhere where the phenomenon, the astrological phenomenon that's going on right now was then right at the fall of the Roman Empire. I can bring that stuff in next time because I don't remember it offhand. But it's really interesting that you're talking about that, and that I was just looking not too long ago about the astrological similarities. And the only difference between then and now was the position of Uranus, because Neptune and Pluto were in the same signs that they're in now, and Uranus was the one that was in a different sign.
What was Neptune and Pluto in?
Neptune is in Aquarius and Pluto is in Sagittarius. Okay. And Neptune and Uranus this time around is in its own sign of Aquarius, and then I think it was something like Taurus. I don't remember offhand what it was.
So Uranus and Neptune are conjunct still in Aquarius.
Well, they're in the same sign.
Right. They're moving out of conjunction.
Anymore, but they're in the same sign. I don't have
the same sign they were before. They're in Aquarius.
Yeah. So the astrological thing is very similar to that. I have it all.
That's interesting.
I have a question. First estate was what? Theocracy. Second was aristocracy.
Actually, the first estate, I believe, is the nobility. It's either the nobility or the priesthood. The first and second estates, the two classic estates, are the nobility and the priesthood. One estate, nobility; two estate, priesthood.
Okay.
And those two are there at the beginning. Those are the two, the sort of pope on the one hand and the king on the other. Those are the two rulers at the top of those two estates. Then as you move out of feudalism and out of theocracy, the third estate, the middle classes, begin to come in. The bourgeois, the moneyed classes, the rich merchants begin coming in. They represent the third estate, and the fourth estate represents the masses.
Which is, can we name those? Democracy is the mass.
Aristotle's cycle is theocracy for the kingship, aristocracy, democracy, which brings in the fourth estate, and then it starts over again with the coming full circle back to theocracy, kingship.
Okay. What was that council that was like in the 3rd or 4th century that just rewrote everything? Was the
Council of Nicaea.
Nicaea?
Yes.
Is that the lineup you're talking about? No?
Council of Nicaea
No, it didn't go that far.
is
it was earlier.
431.
Okay. So what was like Agrippa or something? Was that the time? The lineup?
Yeah, it's more like that. I remember offhand.
I was just asking if you had a time frame of this cycle of nobility.
It depends on which philosopher we're talking about. The time frame, as Spangler breaks it down, it's a 1,000-year cycle altogether, and the time frame for the nobility and priesthood is about 300-400 years, right in there. And the middle period is the bourgeois begin to come in. You also get a shift in architectural values from the great cathedrals, which are the tallest buildings during the first period, where there's a sacred, fundamentally religious worldview, And then when the aristocracy begins to come into power, there's a shift to the palaces of the Baroque and so forth, and those begin to become the tallest buildings during the 17th and 18th centuries, the grand princely periods. And then you move into democracy, that's about 200-300 years. It's roughly about 300 years apiece, something like that, 250. And then the tallest buildings now are office buildings, because we're in a period of pragmatism. Money is the dominant factor, economics, so you can level it out architecturally from cathedral to princely palace to office building. When the cathedrals start to become larger than the office buildings, we'll be back full circle.
Say that.
Or some kind of religious monument. Say, what again?
You go from office buildings back to high cathedrals again, and...
I said, yeah, or some kind of
That's just
sacred
something.
architecture.
Okay,
When money is poured into some form of sacred architecture, and those become the dominant monuments, then we're moving out of the pragmatic phase of culture and back into a new second religiousness. And the whole cycle comes full circle. This is all in the decline of the West, but it's built up out of Aristotle. Well, I think that's all we had on tap for tonight.
Very good.
Yes.
So for
How are we
next
going to
week,
get tested on this, by the way?
You already missed that question. Yeah.
Oh, I was I not here?
Yeah, repeat that for Malcolm. That was good.
just let me mention, for next time, I want to move into The Hero with 1,000 Faces, so read up to, and I didn't bring my book.
Not in
with me.
this.
Does anybody have The Hero with them?
I've got it.
You read all the way up to the chapter called The Cosmogonic Cycle, which is about half of the book, the first half. Stop at the Cosmogonic Cycle.
When is the midterm or the final or whatever?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
It'll probably be the final.
Most likely.
What?
Just the final.
Probably just
Just
the
the
final.
final?
Yeah.
Wait, just one question.
It may be. What have you learned?
Yeah, okay.
One
it's
question.
one of those teasers, I can tell.
And you just spill it all out.
Yeah,
Spill your guts. And just as a final note, the reason I wanted to go into these full myths specifically before we moved into Campbell's hero myth cycle is that in Campbell we don't get full myths. You get these little tiny fragments of pieces because he's going back to the Jungian method of fitting everything into little slots. So you don't get the full, complete sense of what myths are about in The Hero with 1,000 Faces. So I wanted to move into that, starting with complete myths first so that we could get a sense of these things as living, vital, breathing organisms before we start chopping them up into archetypes. But yeah, that's it for tonight.
thank you.
So how we
Thank
get
you.
tested on this?
Okay.
So you synopsize it.
He's going to make it as, I'm paraphrasing, as pedantic and, what was it?
Trivial, or
Trivial.
I don't remember what I said.
As he
What does
possibly can.
pedantic mean anyway?
Very heady, let's put it that way.
Focusing unnecessary on secondary details.
Oh,
It's like
okay,
missing the point
fabulous.
continuously.
That's my favorite.
The test is going to be on all of the
On trivial details.
Oh, okay.
trivial details, the boring and the horrible stuff that
Like, who are the other two
You were
puppets on the
gone.
Howdy Doody show?
Right.
because he figures you got everything else.
Before you get to use it,
I know, because I'm looking at these 7 or 8 pages of notes, and I go, I'm going to pull all this together.
So it's right over the toolbar. You don't go to
Before the-
before you get to use it define. It's above you just.